All right. Hey everyone, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Congresswoman Hillary Scholten, joined here by my colleague Haley Stevens. We're here at the North Lake Processing Center in Baldwin, Michigan, where we've just conducted an oversight tour of the conditions here. Obviously, late last year, unfortunately, an individual died in this processing facility. Congresswoman Stevens and I led a letter to ask about the conditions here that led to that circumstance, as well as general oversight. We had not yet received a response to our letter, so we wanted to come here today and follow up and see for ourselves. There are 1,500 individuals from across the state and the Midwest region that are held here at this facility, the vast majority of which are men, 100 or so women. We were told before we came here today, we asked to put out a sign-up sheet for individuals who wanted to speak with us. Nearly 100 individuals signed up to want to speak to a member of Congress. We were only afforded the opportunity to speak with about 4 today. The situation with respect to ICE across the country is desperate, and we need members of Congress paying attention, conducting more visits like these so that they can care for their constituents. And also, places like this aren't free. Billions of taxpayer dollars go into funding these facilities every single year. It is incumbent on us to make sure that those taxpayer dollars are used wisely and appropriately within the rule of law. I'm going to turn it over to Congresswoman Stevens for her remarks, and we're of course happy to answer your questions.
So as you just heard, we spent several hours touring and visiting what is commonly known as the Baldwin ICE detention facility, but what is officially known as the North Lake Processing Center. This is run by a private entity known as GEO. They contract through DHS. We had a mix of individuals who were contractors and several DHS employees with us. The conversations with detainees were very eye-opening. Our questions were answered, but there's also more questions. And the oversight and the transparency of this center begins at the very top. And unfortunately, the outreach that Congresswoman Scholten and I made to our Department of Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, went unanswered around the death of Mr. Ganchev. And it was recognized today that we had sent that correspondence. What we were informed of is that there is still an ongoing review of his death, and yet a man is dead. And he died here in this ICE center, this ICE processing center, this detention center. The average length of time of someone who's been intaken, about 48 days. We spoke to an individual who and is caught in open space. We're lawmakers. We need to also roll up our sleeves, as we have done, for the safety and security of our country, of our state of Michigan, but also to close loopholes and to make sure that we have fair processes and transparency from the top down to the bottom. I remain disappointed. We are still waiting for answers from her.
Questions.
Yeah, Jackie, Spectrum News. So, walking into this facility, what was like the first thing that you guys kind of took an eye? Was it one of those conversations with those detainees in terms of what they're seeing in day to day? What was like that first thing that you guys kind of saw that really hit you when you walked in?
Yeah, so they walked us through what it would look like, if we were a detainee coming in from, the moment that you enter the facility. And I think the thing that first hit me is, these individuals are separated from their possessions, that they bring in with them. cell phones. Many of these individuals are picked up without warning. They don't know what they're going to experience when they get to this facility. So making sure that they have contact information for individuals that, they need to know to take care of a child. Somebody was picked up at work and someone needs to go get their child from daycare, how quickly that happens. They brought us through the medical screening unit and showed us, how these individuals are, given an overall health assessment. I will say I was impressed that they have both health and dental screening there to make sure that individuals, are not in presenting a health risk to the overall population, and that they will be, attending to their health needs while they're there. And then we were afforded an opportunity to go back in and speak, to individuals in the pod and in the chapel.
And when it comes to those detainees, we had a lawyer out here talking about communication within their clients, because those are their clients. Have you felt that in a certain sense, whether it's communication with their loved ones, their legal representatives? What is that? What was that like?
There seems to be a disconnect, because before I came here today, I have heard about people who've made the journey to come up here to visit and have been declined. They walked us through a somewhat confusing schedule, frankly, of when visits can take place. They do have soundproof rooms with technology for detainees to engage with a lawyer privately. The safety and security is also something that really caught my attention when we walked in. The processing unit is quite sterile when you walk in. There's one toilet. They claimed that they have one toilet that is kind of shielded by a plastic curtain for privacy, minimal privacy, and then they claimed that detainees get a meal upon arrival. Maybe it's a bag of snacks. I don't think they're walked immediately into the cafeteria. The clothing that they are provided is not made in America. I was able to check the labels on that. They did walk us through the washer system, and Congresswoman Scholten impressed upon the facility operators on the cleaning schedule to make sure that people weren't wearing soiled clothes. We had a chance to talk to a woman who was pregnant, who was taken in a handful of days ago, very distressed, very upset, lacking answers, needing translation services, a Spanish speaker. That was obviously quite sobering.
The communication, really stood out to me as well. When we said that we wanted to meet with individuals, we impressed upon them, if these individuals did not speak English or Spanish, I'm fluent in Spanish, we needed interpretation services available. When we got to the meet with the men in the detention center, there was only one English speaker. The other two had non-Spanish interpretation needs that were not able to be met. Even though we had been assured there would be an interpreter there, no interpreter was available. We asked if we could use the phone service. That had not been available, and then we had to push, to go and try and use the phone in another unit, which was only available for one of the individuals, but not the other.
Yeah, and then there was fear also around speaking out to us, fear of punishment or retribution.
Yeah, and how did that come about in terms of talking to detainees? Did you guys
We also had another question right here too.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we can get to everybody, but yeah.
I'm just curious. I think a lot of people, since we don't really get an inside view of what it's like inside. What are the conditions like? What are detainees there telling you? Are they being treated well? Like I've heard stories of like a bunch of people being packed into a room with no place to sleep, with foil blankets. I'm just wondering what you're seeing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I will say what we saw today, right, and this was a pre-planned visit, and this is why, a lot of people are saying, this is why we try to show up unannounced as well and make sure that, you haven't been preparing for this visit for 3 months to make sure everything is neat and in order. What does it look like on a day-to-day basis when we're not there? The facility today was clean. It was individuals were getting their meals on time. We heard from individuals who said that they were getting everything that they need. Congresswoman Stevens mentioned we talked to one of the a pregnant woman who was there, and she said that yes, they are going above and beyond to give her everything they need. So we do need to be honest about that. And yet, we know that an individual has died in this facility, and we still don't have answers as to why. And that is important not to lose sight of. Just because, things looked in order today, right, doesn't mean that's always how it existed. We also talked to another gentleman for an extended period of time that said, he was kept for several weeks in what everyone there refers to as the hole, which is similar to a solitary confinement when people have, management problems, behavioral management problems. He spoke of being, kept in a freezing room where he couldn't feel his toes, and having his food just thrown into his cell. So these are things that we really need to take seriously. The bunking situation is two to a room. And then there's a central room where, about 100 people who are in that pod can gather.
Yeah, and they're able to keep some food items through the commissary in their rooms, their holding cells, in addition to bowls for the cooking of noodles. Something that jumped out at me is one of the women we spoke to who came to this facility by way of California, by way of another detention facility, did say that she felt better treated here than in Campbell County, which is in Kentucky, she claimed, and was expressing that she felt as though she had fair treatment. Of note, there are female leadership here. There's female leadership, and there are women who walked with us today and explained on the intake process how important it is to treat people with humanity. And that obviously really stuck out to me, because some of the things that we are witnessing before our eyes in our neighborhoods, in our streets, is really a lack of humanity. There's been a lack of due process, a lot of open-ended questions with what happens when you come here and the legal process. They're not carrying weapons. They informed us, much to my surprise actually, that no one is carrying a gun in this processing center.
No guns or tasers, only a pepper spray. So there's no weapons at all in the facility.
Isn't that kind of weird if there's supposed to be violent criminals in there?
Right. What are these individuals being detained for?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we also know that 11% of ICE arrests are people with criminal records.
Only 11%.
So we've got 1 in 10 cases, and there's frankly an exploiting of our Constitution and our system of laws, which when you have interpretation difficulties and a legal system that isn't acting. You had a question there.
Yeah, I want to talk about Aaron Sullivan with CCM. I want to talk about the leadership that you spoke to today, because I know they said treating inmates with respect is something that they, discussed with you. We've heard from a lot of people with loved ones here that that's not the case. Mm-hmm. Guards turning their badges around so they can't identify them. Mm-hmm. Phone calls being cut when people do discuss the conditions here. Did you guys press on that at all?
We did, especially when we spoke to a gentleman who was clearly very nervous about telling us about the conditions. And he said, I hope that this isn't used as retribution against me and I get sent back to the hole, because I really want to speak honestly with you. We did ask for an opportunity to speak with him alone and in private, and we were denied that opportunity. So,
and we were denied the opportunity to speak with many people who wanted to speak with us.
They watched you?
They were in the room with us, yes. And, I think that is one thing, again, Oversight is not a single letter on a single occasion, and that's what I think I really want to impress today on what I think all of our colleagues, Republicans and Democrats, should be doing. Congresswoman Stevens and I sent a letter. When we didn't get an answer to a letter, we came here to see for ourselves. Now we're going to be following up to make sure this gentleman who spoke so freely to us doesn't experience the retribution that he is afraid of experiencing. So, I think it's not a one and done. We need to continue, holding accountable every single day. Is what, our constituents sent us.
We
to
sent
Washington
congressional oversight to the Secretary of Homeland Security about what is actually taking place here. And there was an attorney when we were leaving in the vestibule waiting to come in, and he informed that he was planning to see almost 100 people. That's his waiting list. Yes, sir.
Do you have a sense of where the detainees here are coming in from? I know you mentioned there was one woman from California. Is it primarily people that are being detained initially in Michigan or elsewhere?
Mostly Michigan is what
vast
we heard
majority.
from. There was Grand Rapids. There were several I talked to from Warren, in
And then
Macomb County.
Was it difficult to organize this visit as a whole? Were there any roadblocks or challenges to actually getting this visit to happen?
You know, I will say they were very forthcoming in allowing us to come here, and we were able to schedule this on our time frame. We did get the visit cut short from by an hour, which was frustrating, especially given the fact that there were 100 detainees apparently that wanted to speak to us, that were so desperate for a connection to someone to help them. We originally were given 3 hours, and they cut it to 2 today. So yeah. Yep.
Are there representatives of ICE or DHS at this facility?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you speak with them?
Yes.
What did you?
Congressional liaison
Okay.
was here from DHS, someone who had served in the Marines for 27 years, came from my congressional district, was certainly eager to be transparent and kind of show where they're trying to make improvements. Where I come in as a lawmaker who's trying to stand up to, frankly, some of the abuses of power that we've seen stemming from the very top, even all the way up to the president, who's threatened to deploy the military on Americans when local law enforcement and state officials aren't asking for it. ICE needs to take off their masks in the streets. ICE needs to have accountability. What we've witnessed before our very eyes taking place in Minneapolis is outrageous, and it's infuriating. And we have dead Americans, and we also have individuals who are being detained who haven't committed a crime and then are caught up in a legal system, and they have disrupted lives. They have family who is being hurt, and frankly, communities who are left with a lot of answers.
Notably, they designate the detainees here who have a criminal background. They make them wear red jumpsuits in the population. I think we only saw 2-3 people in red jumpsuits in there. The pregnant woman who we spoke to was absolutely beside herself. She's got an 18-month-old at home who said just sobbed on the phone when she was able to finally speak to her. She found out she was pregnant when she came here. And she's just beside herself to try and get back to her daughter. Her husband works around the clock. They take shifts. He works. She comes home and takes care of. He takes care of the baby when she comes home, and then she goes to work. And now she's she doesn't know how they're going to be able to make this work if she's not there to do it. And she said, I've never done anything wrong, and I have asylum. Why did I even get picked up? She had no answers.
Thanks, everyone. That's all we have time for.
Okay.
But Congresswoman Stevens will be available for both sides as well.
Yes, I'm sorry. I have to get back on the road to Grand Rapids, but yes, absolutely. Yep, there you go.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you guys. I do. I sure do. Yes. How you doing? Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I'm expecting that.
Oh, you okay? That's right. I said that.
You want to start first? I went through some changes, so yeah, in the
Yeah.
spectrum, and now we're national.
Yeah.
So if you ever have stuff, that's in there.
Okay. All right. Great.
So perfect.
All
I
right.
was literally my first customer was the hang that head shop
Yeah,
downtown.
yeah, I remember. I remember.
I have
I know.
picked up.
Yes, you can. I know. I'm glad you asked. Yeah.
God, that's so funny. Well, thank you so much.
Yes.
Seriously.
Yeah. Great work. Yes. Good to see you guys. Yeah.